Hello everyone! I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my sewing room. Today, it is entirely possible, is the day that you have all been waiting for. Maybe. If you follow me on Instagram, you have seen progress pictures go up since May with my 1890s Elsa spirit dress. This has been a very, very long project. I do not usually spend this much time on a project, so it's kind of driving me crazy, but today is the day when those vlogs come out! That's what you're watching! So I'm filming this intro right now here in the beginning of September, but all of the footage that you are going to see here in these vlogs does date back all the way from May, June, July, August, etc. with this entire saga of creating my 1890s Elsa. This vlog is hopefully going to be in two parts. We'll see if I keep recording footage since I'm not actually done with the dress yet. There may be a third part, but you're getting this first part today and you will get the second part 2 weeks from now, and hopefully you enjoy it. I know it's long, but it contains all of the details about how I've been making this Elsa spirit dress. So especially if you want to make one of your own, definitely have a look through these videos. After the vlogs come out, I will also be doing a hot fix rhinestone tutorial for you, and I will also have a final reveal video for you as well, but that will be coming later. Anyway, let's go back to May, and here you are, the first Elsa vlog. Hello everyone and welcome back to my sewing room. I'm Rebecca and today I'm going to be embarking on a brand new project that a few of us costumers have decided to do all together, which is an 1890s Frozen compilation of costumes. There is an amazingly brilliant artist, and I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation of her Instagram name, but it's Gebruerstine. I will post it up here and link it down below. And she has drawn a fantastic series of Anna and Elsa in their various costumes, but set in 1890s style. So a few of us costumers have decided to bring these and also some other original inspiration designs to life. As soon as I saw them, I fell in love with Elsa's spirit dress. It is an 1890s princess seam type dress. Looks like that. And I think it is just absolutely gorgeous. So I've decided to bring this project to life. Now, I've done 1890s plenty of times before, and I have done one princess seam dress, though it was a natural form dress, not an 1890s dress. So I'm really kind of starting from scratch here, probably going to be reinventing the wheel in the process, but I have just completed my first mock-up. I've yet to try this on, so I've decided I am going to take you along on my journey from the very beginning and start with trying on the mock-up for you. Now, this project is probably going to take a very long time to complete. I am filming this here right in the middle of May. I think it is the 18th of May. And these videos that you are going to be watching here, it's probably August right now that you're watching these videos, because that's the timeline that we gave ourselves for this project, which is good because as part of this, I have decided to do all of the design work in here all in heat fix rhinestones. So I do have a hot fix gun. I am going to be using it really for the first time. I have tested 3 rhinestones and I've ordered, I think, 10,000 rhinestones on Amazon. So I expect this to take me a very, very long time. I'm also waiting on the fabric to get here. I'm going to be using, for the main body of the dress, I'm going to be using this gorgeous silk file, which I believe I got on Fabric Mart Fabrics. So this is going to be the main underneath part, but Elsa is so floaty and lovely that I've decided over the top is going to be silk organza. Now right now I have only a tiny bit of silk organza. So I placed an order with Dharma Trading, which is where I always buy my silk organza. I placed that about a week ago, but because of coronavirus, that has yet to ship. So Luckily, I have plenty of time to try on this mock-up and make sure that the fit works. Now, you can't actually see it currently, but this mock-up only goes to about the low thigh. And that is because I don't like to waste fabric. So really all that I need to see is that it fits correctly everywhere in the bodice, and then also that it will flare out correctly from the waist through the hips and get to that mid thigh point. At that point, I can really just follow those lines down to the bottom. There's still some technical things that I need to decide, and a lot of that's going to come from trial and error and trying it on. Right now I'm trying to decide what I want to line it with. I'm leaning towards cotton sateen instead of my usual twill. I usually line bodices with twill, but I line skirts not with twill typically. So I have to play around with things and decide what I want for that. But the first step, of course, is going to be trying on the mock-up. Now, the nice thing is I'm not completely inventing the wheel here, because the back of this mock-up is basically my princess-themed 1880s dress, or late 1870s dress. It's pretty much the same. I've changed the flare through the skirts to be wider. I don't think I've widened it quite enough, to be honest, so we're going to see what that looks like once I try it on, but I think I'm going to need a little bit more flare. But I am really sticking with that main pattern for the back. It's the front where I'm completely changing things. I actually started, funnily enough, is that going to stand? There we go. Just a little tipsy. I actually started for this front bodice. I tried to use my go-to bodice, but it's done with 2 darts, not a princess seam, so it wasn't quite working. So what I've done is I've actually kind of taken that go-to bodice and then taken a simplicity, I think it is, pattern for Anna and Elsa's bodices, and I've looked at, that way I can just look at a princess seam shape, and I've kind of overlaid what that would be like if it was on my go-to Victorian bodice pattern, so that the size would be the same and the lines will be the same. So I don't know, I'm feeling a little bit positive because it does appear to be fitting Antoinette, my dress form, just about like things normally do. But I'm also kind of thinking that the bust might be too big, so I don't know. We'll have to try it and see how that goes. I also definitely did something wrong in the neckline because I think I cut the back neckline too low. Since this will have a high collar, this area in here is going to be organza, as well as the sleeves. I don't know that I'm going to have anything underneath. I like the sheer effect, so that's my thought, is that the top will be organza and I will cut the silk file to get that shape underneath the organza. So we'll see how that goes, but I think I have a lot of trial and error ahead of me, and this is going to be the first step. So let's go ahead and try it on. So here's the mock-up. Good news and bad news. The good news is that this actually is like not too bad up here. I definitely need to bring this farther up, I think, for the cutouts. Sorry, that's my dog barking in the background at the neighbors. And there's something funky going on here too, but I think that's because this isn't attached to anything because I cut the neckline too low in the back. And I'm thinking I want to actually just turn this so that it curves in. I always tend to need to do this. I have a really big curve from bust point to neckline, and so this always needs to kind of dart in. But the bad part is that I somehow made this about 2 inches too small. One of the things that I've been trying to figure out with this dress and with 1890s princess dresses in general is how they close. Because there are 3 extant dresses in the Met, and I will pop up pictures here as I'm talking, but there are 3 extant dresses in the Met, and really you can't see the closures on any of them. You can see collar closures on at least 2 of them, but so I'm trying to decide how I want this to close. This one in the Met with the gold has this gorgeous pleated fall down the back, almost like Watteau pleats, and I'm going to kind of emulate that with the silk organza. So because it'll be a separate piece of fabric for me, it's okay if I have buttons down the back, but if I want to, I might want to do one of those funky hidden closures like they so enjoyed. So anyway, what I have to figure out here is where I want to put in those extra 2 inches. It seems to be about 2 inches all the way from arm's eye to waist, pretty much, maybe a little bit less at the arm's eye. So it shouldn't be too hard to figure out where I want to put it in. It's definitely in the back because I think my side seams are hitting just about where they want to be. So that's really where it needs to go, somewhere in the back. I'll probably just do a strip right up the center back just for mock-up's sake and figure out what that wants to look like. But on the plus side, the bust actually doesn't look that far off. I was kind of trying to emulate that cream and gold dress in its how far off it is on the side, and I think I may have actually gone even a little bit too far. So there's definitely some things that I need to play around with this mock-up, but it's not terrible, and I think that if I do a little bit of tweaking, I'm going to figure it out. So I will come back to you with mock-up number 1.2. Alright, so I am back with mock-up 1.2, I guess. What I've done is I've put a little piece right in the side here that literally just extends it 1 inch by the waist, tapering out to nothing by the armpit because I didn't need any additional there. And then continuing 1 inch down all the way to the bottom of this thigh length hem. And you know what? I'm not upset about it. I think this is pretty right on, to be honest. There's a little bit of like excess maybe. There's definitely a little bit of excess right here, which I mentioned before is probably something I will need to pinch out. That said, the bodice sketch I think really shows the organza here as kind of shirred up to the neckline. So fitting this exactly isn't really an issue anyway, but it's also going to be really easy to just take this as a little dart out of here if I do decide to fit it entirely. Just mark that. This is where I didn't meet up my shoulders, so it looks pretty decent in the front, but I think I need to add seam allowance to get me enough to put a collar on, since it will have a standing collar. And then in the back I did cut that way too low, so obviously that's where I'm going to really have to tweak it, because it'll need to come up to about here for a standing collar, so we're off by a good, 2 inches or something. I might also need to curve the back in just a little bit. It's hard to tell. My roommate helped me pin this, and it's hard to tell just how much it needs to come out, but because I can't tell how she pinned it. But I think overall the fit on this is pretty good. The one thing that I'm trying to decide here is if I like the flare. And I think this is something I'm going to have to really look at my Inspiration extant garments, because I think I have a little too much flare possibly going on here in the front, where I think I want it a little bit less flare. Whereas in the back, I think I actually might want some additional volume. So I'm going to wind up studying those extents and seeing how I feel about that. But overall, I can go with this. It's really not bad. Again, I think there's like a little bit of room. Maybe I put in a little too much, or I need to taper this out a little bit down. But to be honest, I think that's something that I will do in my finished, like in my actual fabrics, as opposed to in the mock-up, because then I can figure out my closure situation too. I'm still not sure if I want this to be a back close, or if I want to do the whole thing that I found in the video of that extant garment that I got in May. I'll link to that video, but it's a turn of the century bodice that closes in the back of the collar, comes down the shoulder, has a closure here, and then closes down the side. So I don't know if that's going to be best, because this is princess seam and that closure will have to continue here. I'm thinking that that's going to be a little too odd, to then have a lap closure all the way down there. I don't know. I feel like it would gap. So I think I may just do little buttons down the center back. This is also, of course, historically inspired, not historical, because they would not have necessarily covered this head to toe with heat fix rhinestones. So, and you know, it is also frozen and it's going to be a lot of organza. And so I don't have to do things exactly correctly. I just want them to be mostly correctly. But overall, fit-wise, I think we have a winner here with mock-up 1.2. I just need to check the flare of these skirts, and I think that will be, and fix my collar, my neckline, obviously. I think that will be just about everything that I need. So I'm happy with it. I probably won't even make a mock-up 1.3 or 2.0 or whatever. I feel pretty comfortable with just measuring up how much I need in the neckline and adding that to my actual pattern. So hopefully those are not famous last words, but I will check back with you with my next step, which will probably be cutting out my silk and or playing with fabrics when they arrive. I actually got a notification between filming the first part of this and the last part that my organza has shipped, so hopefully I should have that soon, and I will also be receiving all of the rhinestones over the next week or so. I'm hoping that that's everything that I need for this, just because purchasing things right now is difficult and slow, but we shall see. So anyway, I will see you soon. Hello, it has been 5 days since I last checked in on this project. I ran into a little difficulty because one of the things that I decided on was that I wanted to flatline this whole dress basically from bust down with cotton twill, and I only had 2 yards of cotton twill left. Sorry about the cattail. And so I needed to get more cotton twill. Now normally that's not a problem. Just run out to Joann's, get some cotton twill. It's basically always in stock, and continue with the project. But of course, with this whole coronavirus situation going on, A, I can't just run out to the store, and B, I think people are using twill for masks maybe, because it's a little bit of a saga, but basically I wound up going online to Joann's and ordering 5 yards to be picked up from one store and 7 yards to be picked up from another store, because although I thought that might be a little bit extra, it's always good to have twill on hand anyway. And I woke up the next morning, the 5 yard order got canceled. So called them, they said, oh, that's because we only have 4 yards in stock, place your order again. So I placed my order again. In meanwhile, the 7 yard order still was not ready. And then I woke up again the next day, and again, the 4 yard order had been canceled. So I did wind up yesterday going to go get the 7 yard order, which meant that I had to drive 45 minutes each way to the Joann's that had that in stock. But I got it home, threw it in the wash, and I cut out all of my flatlining pieces. And luckily, 7 yards was enough. So I'm so thankful. But now what I decided to do was, I wasn't feeling very comfortable with the way things were flaring, trying to cut an 80-inch piece, because that's what the back is from about here all the way down to a train. Trying to cut an 80-inch piece on a 60-inch table was just not working with my brain. The day, I think that was Thursday, that I was trying to cut that piece, it literally took me 2 hours to cut one piece, so that was great. And so I've decided that I want to assemble the twill pieces all together, try them on as mock-up number 2, and that way if I need to make any tweaks, I can make those changes before I cut into the silk. One of the things is that I think I may have actually cut it even a little bit long. So if it's a little too long, then that means that I can cut some off on the twill and save that extra length on the silk so I don't wind up wasting that. The nice thing about this project is that it doesn't use any of the fabric for trimming, but because the pieces are so long and they're princess seamed, I know it's going to be very, very difficult to lay this all out on the silk. So I just wanted to do one more trial and put together all of my twill pieces, which you can see here kind of pinned on the background on the form, and try those on. So that is my next thing. I'm going to go ahead and assemble all of those twill pieces together. It's also pretty okay that I'm taking this step because I can't start assembling my silk pieces until my silk organza gets here from Dharma Trading. Looks like that's supposed to be here on Tuesday. So that means that even if this all works now, and I cut out all of my silk file pieces, I still can't do anything with them until I get them, because I want to use them as a pattern piece. So once the silk organza arrives on Tuesday, then I can go ahead, cut everything out, and actually assemble everything. And hopefully it won't be too hard once I have assembled everything. It should be pretty straightforward. The one thing that I'm concerned about is having silk organza as the shoulder piece. Silk organza is not a strong fabric. When I used it for my Mary Poppins bodice, I wound up pulling out the armpits. So I have to really figure out how to make that silk organza sturdy enough. I'm definitely going to be having a sort of like loops that I can put on a hanger so that there's no weight being put on the organza when it hangs. It should be okay when I'm wearing it, because I think a lot of the weight is really going to come from the waist as opposed to the shoulders. So that's what I'm hoping. I did make one other decision too, which is I have decided to make this a center back closure. I'm going to do some facing pieces down the center back and use those. I haven't decided yet whether it's going to be hooks and eyes or buttons, like little pearl buttons, but it will be one of those. And then I will have a sort of fake Watteau pleat section that is going to be out of the silk organza coming down from the neck. So that is what I've decided. I'm going to go ahead and get to sewing so that I can show you what it looks like all together. Hello everyone, I am back with the next installment of Elsa here. I realized that I forgot to take any pictures or video of when I put the twill layer of the dress on. Other than this video that I'm going to put up right here, that is just me walking around my house testing out the train width. Now, by the time I filmed this video, I had actually already taken out the godettes that are, godets, I never know, that are the little triangular pieces, or large triangular pieces in this case, that I had originally put in the center back of the train to really make that center back flow out. So I'd already removed them. What I decided to do after this video was that the train was just still too voluminous. As you can see from the video, it really wasn't laying right and it was folding in on itself. Now granted, this is just twill, so it doesn't have that body or that structure that an 1890s train actually has built into it, but it still just wasn't working like I wanted it to work. So after I did that try on, I went ahead and took out, while I had it on the dress form, I took out another section of the back. So what I did was where the side back or mid back seam meets the center back pieces, I went ahead and I took out, I think about 5 or 6 inches by the time it reached the hem of the train on each of those pieces. So tapering up to the waist, really tapering up to the high hip, which is where it was fitting nicely. So I removed all of that, and to be honest, it's really, really good that I did, because then I liked how everything looked. I ripped apart my twill pieces and I started cutting into my silk. And I was about 4 pieces into my cutting out of my 9 pieces of silk when I noticed some marks on the fabric, so I went and measured where those marks were, and then realized that I should probably measure the rest of it because it was looking a little bit short. I had ordered 10 yards of this silk from Fabric Mart Fabrics, and it turns out they sent me 9 yards. Now, that said, I emailed them about this on Tuesday night. By this morning, they had already emailed me back by about noon today. They had refunded me not just for the 1 yard missing, but for 50% of the purchase price. So I super love Fabric Mart Fabrics. That's honestly my #1 online resource for silk. I've purchased more silk from them online than any other retailer online, and obviously their customer service is fantastic too. So shout out to Fabric Mart Fabrics and their customer service team, just maybe not their cutter. But in any case, if I had not removed that extra width from the train, my pieces would not have fit on 9 yards. So thank goodness I decided to remove that, because at this point I have had all of my body pieces of my silk cut out and they're all pinned, flatlined in place to the twill, and I have a little over 1 yard left. Also, luckily, the big balloon 1890 sleeves are not made out of the silk satin. They're just going to be silk organza. So the only thing that I have left for the silk satin is actually the lower fitted sleeve. So that should be, well, totally fine to cut out of a little over a yard of like 48-inch wide fabric. That's not going to be a problem at all. So I'm really glad that I got all of that silk cut out. It was kind of nerve-wracking doing everything, but even with it just here on the form, I think it's looking very pretty already. Now I can't assemble this until I cut out my silk organza, which brings me to problem number 2. I have not yet decided if this problem is going to be something that's going to fully delay this project or not, but my original silk organza order that I placed from Dharma Trading did arrive on, I think, like first thing Tuesday morning, like really, really early. So I have that here, and I am going to lay out my pieces to see if I can use it. But I realized when I was cutting everything out on my twill that these pieces are fairly wide, and my silk satin was 48 inches wide, my twill was like 55 inches wide, and my silk organza that I first ordered from Dharma Trading is like 40 inches wide. So I don't know. I ordered 10 yards, but I don't know that that's going to be enough. And I am concerned that I'm basically just going to wind up wasting a whole lot of it if I cut into it because of the shapes of these pieces. So I am going to do a little puzzling around. That's my next step, just to see if I can get all of these pieces out of that silk organza. But in the meantime, I don't remember what night this was at this point. I think this was Sunday night, which is when I realized this. I went ahead and I placed an order on Dharma Trading for the 55-inch silk organza, which is what I should have done in the first place. And I don't know why I didn't, except that I've never ordered that wide before. I've always ordered the narrower width because it just, you know, silk organza is a little squirrely, and the less width I feel like is the less squirreliness. The problem is that Dharma Trading right now, because again, this is May 27th, I think, today. So we're still in the height of coronavirus, and I really hope that by the time you're watching this, it's all over. I kind of doubt that it will be. Anyway, so we're in the heart of coronavirus, and Dharma Trading is having to run with a limited staff, and they're not able to ship their fabrics very quickly. Right now, they're at about 10 days delay for shipping. So that was on Sunday. I've gotten my confirmation that my order went through, but that might not ship even until the middle of next week, and then it's another week at least until it gets here, because it seems to be shipping at a pretty slow speed right now too. So if my 40-inch organza does not work out, then I'm going to have a huge delay, and I'm going to have to find another project to work on in the meantime, and these guys will just get to like hang out dangerously with all of those raw edges, unattached, unserged, anything like that, and dragging on the floor on my form. So that's, I don't know, it scares me. That idea scares me, and I really want to just assemble it and put it together, but I have to use those patterns, those pieces, as the pattern for my silk organza. Yeah, I probably should have put everything on pattern paper, but I don't have that much pattern paper, and it's always really unruly, so I didn't. I just have the like patterns of the short hip length one that I first tried on, and that's not going to help me at all with the skirts of this, because these are up to 80 inches long. So anyway, that's my next step. I'm going to try to cut out the silk organza, and hopefully when I speak to you next, when I speak to you next, whether that is tomorrow or whether that's 2 plus weeks from now, I will have the organza cut out, and I will be able to start flatlining this, or maybe I will have already flatlined this, knowing me and video recording. I will have already flatlined this and maybe be assembling it. The interesting thing with this project is that honestly, the only trimming is 10,000 plus rhinestones. So, which I've ordered more of because I can't decide which rhinestones I like best. I ordered some in colors and some in a purple-white iridescent. And I'm really liking the purple-white iridescent, so I ordered more of that while I decide if I like the colors or not. But that's really the only trimming. It's all just rhinestones. So I'm going to have the body of this dress really built for a significant amount of time while I'm just rhinestoning the heck out of it. I will probably not do up like the center back seam is my guess of the organza. I might actually, because it's still big enough that I can lay it pretty flat. But I just need the rhinestones are pretty much all going on the organza, and so I'm going to do what my plan is. This might not actually happen. I'm going to rhinestone all of the bottom of the skirt of the organza. Then I'm going to attach everything together, which unfortunately the yoke that I tested out in organza and it wasn't working at all. So I do have to re-pattern the yoke, but I won't be able to tell exactly how that needs to go until I assemble this. But then once I figure out the yoke, the bodice will be in points right up here. And so I have to figure out how that's going to go together, if I'm going to do a facing or what, as I blend that into the organza. And I'm also trying to decide right now what kind of chemise I want, because I realize my chemise straps totally show when I tried on the organza. And then I'm also trying to figure out if this is meant to be like kind of ruched in the organza, or if I want that just to be straight. So I think I'm going to do some tests with that and figure out what I want. But basically, I'm going to be trying to do all of this skirt decoration before I really assemble things with the silk satin. And then I might actually try and do the bodice decoration too, and just leave this bit right up here where it meets for doing that like once everything's actually assembled. So I have a lot of questions there because I just haven't worked with rhinestones before. And this is going to be a lot because I'm planning on doing all of this out of rhinestones, all of the decorations. So yeah, I have a lot of work ahead of me, but I will check back in with you soon. And at some point I hope to intersperse actual sewing showing you in this, but like, again, it's not really hard stuff. Like, they're just giant straight seams, and I don't think you want to watch that. Or like watch me just cutting out silk organza while I scream, because that's what happens when you cut out silk organza. So we'll see. I will be back soon. Alright, I have just finished cutting out all of my pieces. I squeaked the organza out of the original organza that I had ordered from Dharma Trading, the narrower stuff. In addition to the one last piece of organza that I had left from my previous order, which came in handy for the front piece. Literally cleared it by this much. This is how much, yeah, it was, I don't know how that happened, but it was very stressful trying to get that all out. Not to mention, cutting silk organza is basically the worst. It is the biggest pain. It just slides all over the place, and so I cut out 2 pieces 2 days ago, and then I cut out the rest of the pieces today, and it's just like, I think it took me about 6 hours almost to cut out 7 pieces. So needless to say, I'm not sewing it together today, but probably tomorrow I will go ahead and start assembling the bodice, just because I really want to, particularly the interior silk pieces. I just really want to get that all flatlined and all assembled and everything, and I will probably assemble the organza too if I have time. So I'll check back in with you once I have assembled everything. I will talk to you again soon, and if I've assembled everything, I'll probably do a little try on of it too. So that'll be fun. Hello everyone. It's been a while, but as you can see here, I have kind of assembled the body. The underlayer, which is the silk satin file with the twill together with it, that is basically done. I have to cut out the neckline here so that it looks all pointy, which is good, because right now you can see right here I've got some darts going on, and that's because my bust just curves in pretty significantly. And so without actually cutting the dips down for the bodice, which I have to figure out where they're going to go to, but without actually cutting those, this bodice would be super gappy up here. So hopefully cutting those out should solve that problem. But it's also like super nerve-wracking just to cut it. So I don't know. I guess I'm going to kind of figure out part of it as I'm wearing it now, and then maybe mark it and do more of it later, like when it's on the form. We'll see. But yeah, it's just really weird. So, and then the silk organza on top here, this right now is obviously not fitting very well to the seams. So I'm going to have to do some tweaking on here. I think it was just like with the cutting, it wound up maybe a little bit larger than my pieces. And originally I was going to do French seams, and then I realized that would probably take it in too much. And also I don't know that I love the look of the French seams. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do the seam, and then I'm going to do a rolled hem on my serger because it's so nice and light. And I did a little test and a rolled hem on top of the white silk satin. In fact, here's my test. It really doesn't show, so it blends in really nicely. So I'm just gonna do that as my hem treatment, or as my seam treatment. It's gonna be a seam with the rolled hem. Yeah, so that's what I have to do for the dress. It obviously needs a hem too. It needs closures, but everything is fitting really well in the back, so that's good. I do have to recut this mesh. So what I decided to do for this neckline area is I'm going to have this mesh, which this is like sport whatever decorative mesh, the nude color, and that is going to have the organza over the top of it. So I still don't know what I'm going to do about the chemise, because obviously chemise totally shows. In fact, almost shows more with the organza, I feel like. So I probably am going to do maybe like an Edwardian style chemise that has ribbon straps that can be tied underneath my arms or something like that. I still have to figure that out. But anyway, the mesh seems to work pretty well up here, but I didn't cut it long enough. So because I forgot that I was going to cut down the points, I did my mesh so that it like ran the right length for touching the bodice as it is, and not touching the bodice as it's cut down like 2 inches. I also actually wound up just too short on the sides, so I've got this little dangling bit because it matches right up with the side right now. So I'm going to have to recut that, and then I also have to cut it out of the organza and put all of that together. But next step is to fit the organza to the bodice, and I think while I'm doing that, so I'm trying to decide, because I don't think I can do closures on the bodice until I put the organza on, but I'd really like to do closures because that'll make things easier for trying it on. Because right now my wonderful roommate is pinning me into my dress and stabbing herself all over by pinning me into my dress, and I don't want that. I just want to make it easy. So I'm probably going to put closures on, but that might mean that I have to attach the organza, which would mean that the rhinestone setting is going to be more difficult. So I really don't know yet on that, because I was thinking it would be easier to do rhinestones when the organza is not on the dress, even though I know that for the rhinestones on the bodice, I have to do it while it's on the dress, because otherwise they're going to be in the wrong place. So there's a lot of things to figure out, and this is just kind of like mind-boggling to me. I don't know. It's not that it's, other than the rhinestones, I was just having this conversation with my roommate, other than the rhinestones, it's not that there's anything new with this project. It's just for some reason hard to wrap my head around everything. I guess having like kind of a nude, fake layer underneath is new, but that's still not a big deal. So yeah, I'm just trying to kind of figure everything out, and they're tough fabrics to work with and annoying, so it's kind of slow going because I can only take so much of it at a time. But I am liking the look of it. I'm going to pop up a video on here of me walking around, what it looks like with the train and everything. I really like what's going on with the train. I think it's coming out really nice. And it's just kind of a perfect length. There's also a possibility that I might do the hem before I do the neckline, but I feel like that'd be stupid, so I don't know. It's fitting really nicely at the waist though, and the waist isn't going to change. So I might do the hem, because that would actually just be really relaxing, I feel like. Which is weird, but yeah. So that's actually a good idea. I think I'll do the hem of the silk satin layer, because that sounds peaceful. But overall, I'm trucking along with it. It's just a little... So I'm glad that this video series stuff is not really due until August, because I might wind up interspersing a different project along with this, just because it is so kind of mind-numbing. But at the same time, I really want to finish it because it's pretty, and also because I'm just paranoid about having stuff that's like unfinished, particularly the silk organza, out, you know, sitting around. So I will definitely finish up these seams on the silk organza before really anything else happens, just because I don't want it laying around, because I'm that sort of paranoid. And honestly, that's not even something to be paranoid about, because if you leave silk organza laying around without finishing your seams, you will just have shreds. So, especially with cats, but even without cats. So yeah, that's my check-in for now. Next time that you see this, I don't know exactly what I will have done, because clearly I'm not thinking straight. It's also midnight, so that doesn't help. But probably I will have the silk organza fitted, maybe a hem done, and maybe closures on the back. I don't know, hand sewing just sounds really nice right now. So that might be what happens. I will see you later. Hello everyone! So I am much less loopy than I was in that last clip. And it's actually been a week since I checked in with you, and I do apologize for that, because I'm going to pop up some video on screen here of some detail shots, because I have been recording video, but apparently I've been forgetting to check in with you and tell you all about what I've been doing. So I have been working on Elsa. I know she doesn't look that much different than she did a week ago, but the key things that I've done is that I fitted the silk organza to the silk satin layer on the bodice, on the dress, really, since it's all one piece, of the underlayer. Doing that was really tricky and finicky, and I had to basically take each bit, put it on inside out, put the whole thing on inside out, pinch out the seams, pin those seams completely, and then sew those seams, then roll hem with my serger the edges of those seam allowances, so that they would be about 3/8 of an inch wide was what I was going for. And then I put it back on the form. I pressed it all. I put it back on the form right side in and stitched all of these in place on the seam lines. So each of these seams is stitched in place down to about the high hip level, and then that way that will hopefully give it some structure for once this is all covered with rhinestones. So that's my goal. I don't know for sure it will work, but it was a very painstaking process of a lot of pinning and sewing and pinning and sewing and pinning and sewing. And I really like the way it looks. The seam allowance with the roll hem almost gives it kind of an external boning look, which I am not sad about. So yeah, that was kind of interesting. Once I finished that, I also roll hemmed the edges here of the closure. I hand sewed all of these edges down, and it's also hand sewed down inside the side of the bodice. There will be hooks and bars going on there. That is my to-do list for today, is to do the closures all the way down the back. And but this is all hand whipped on into place. I've also serged each layer and sewn together the tops of the back. I have not sewn together the tops of the front because I still have to cut down the points, which is like really scaring me, because if I screw that up, I screw up all of this. So I'm so scared about that, but I'm gonna have to bite the bullet and do it sometime soon, but probably not until after I have cut and assembled the yoke, all the yoke layers. The other thing that I worked on, which I just finished yesterday, is the hem of the whole dress. So when I left you last week, I hadn't started the hem at all, but I found in my stash that I had some 6-inch horsehair braid, like the net, you know, the poly or the plastic nylon stuff. And so I used that horsehair braid and put that in the train of the skirt. But I decided that I really wanted the horsehair braid all the way around, because just putting it in the train seemed weird. So I ordered some more. That arrived 2 days ago, I think. And it turned out that it was a way thicker horsehair braid than what I had. So when I put in the first horsehair braid, I stitched it in by machine on the very edge of the fabric, very edge of the hem. And I also at the same time, I had created a bias strip of twill as a facing, really long to go around the whole hem. And I had stitched that on like a sandwich. So we had horsehair braid. I'm trying to remember how I did this. Horsehair braid, silk satin and twill flat lined together dress, and then twill on the underside. And then that twill would be flipped up over to cover that. We're going from inside out, P.S. To cover that horsehair braid. So I hand whipped down all of the twill that covered the horsehair braid that I had already put in, and that took me a few hours last Saturday. And it was like, great, well, I'll just do the other half when the horsehair braid arrives. But as I mentioned, the horsehair braid arrived and it was way stiffer. So the conclusion that I came to was that I would undo all of that hand sewing, but leave in the machine sewing of what I had already done with the lighter weight horsehair braid in the back. And I would take the heavy weight horsehair braid and put that all the way around the whole thing. So basically we'd get weight one weight in the front and weight 1.5 in the back of the train to give it even that extra stiffness of having the 2 layers of horsehair braid together. Then yesterday for about, I don't know, somewhere between 4 to 5 hours, I think, I went and I hand stitched down the twill back to the top. The tricky thing is that it's impossible to hold because it's 6 inches wide here, so it's way wider than I can grip with my hand if I want my hand underneath, which I did because when I'm taking a stitch, I have to make sure that I'm getting the twill of the flat lining, but not the silk satin. Don't show those stitches. So twill the flat lining, I want to get a little loop through the horsehair braid, and then I want to come up with the twill of the facing. So it was just a process and just really hard. And it involved me sitting on the floor for 5 hours of doing this. And it was just like a lot. But it looks gorgeous now. It is so stiff. Can practically stand on its own with the hem. It is creating the most beautiful shape. So I'm not sad about it. And now I'm going to do the hooks and bars up the back. I've also already cut / marked the organza layer of the hem. So I'm going to roll hem that, which is all I plan to do as a finish. I'm just going to roll hem with my serger. I've got a Baby Lock Imagine. So if you know the Baby Lock Imagine, you know that it does the most beautiful rolled hem, and it is so great for your sheer type fabrics. It just looks beautiful. So that's what I'm doing on the edge of the organza on the hem. And so the hooks and bars and the organza hem, and I thought I had one other thing that I was going to do today, but I have it written down. I don't remember what it is. The other thing that has arrived in the mail is that I got my boning from corsetmaking.com. So I have decided not to put this in until probably close to the end. I think I want to do this only before I do the rhinestones. So it's going to be like the third to last step. It'll be corset boning, then draw in where I need to put all the rhinestones, then rhinestones. But I think I want to do all of the neckline finishing and all the sleeves and everything before then, because it's going to be easier to manipulate in the sewing machine area without this. It's already going to be hard enough because this dress weighs a ton now that I've put all that horsehair braid in, which doesn't make sense because that stuff's lightweight, but it feels really heavy and it feels really bulky. So that's where we are, and I will check back in with you probably the next time I put it on, because I think I'm going to put it on again after I do the closures and the hem, possibly after I cut out mock-up number 2 of the neckline so that I can just see that in place, because again I have to figure out where to cut the points down in the front, so I want to put it on again before I do that, and I'm just so nervous about it. Like, what if I screw it up and the whole dress will be screwed up, and then you'll probably never see this video because I'll just hate myself and stop sewing ever, because I will have ruined all of this silk satin and all of this time, and This is why I'm so scared about it. So I just gotta get over it and be careful. Measure 25 times, cut once. Okay, see you soon. Well, I think that's enough content for one vlog, don't you think? So let's go ahead and end this here. We'll pick up again in 2 weeks with the next segment of creating Elsa. I do hope you enjoyed this video though, and if you liked it, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a video. I do post videos on YouTube twice a week, with my sewing vlogs coming out on Tuesday and regular content like this, I guess, is now coming out on Friday. But I do post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you would like to support all of the work that I do on this channel, I do have a link to my Ko-fi account down below. Again, I do hope you enjoyed this video. Have a great week, and I will see you in my next video. Happy sewing!